Splasher is an indie game that came to the Switch this month and PS4 and Xbox One back in late September. It's been on my backlog for quite a bit now, and so I want to go ahead and give it a review now that I'm finally caught up on all the AAA releases from this past week. Here's an indie game with an interesting looking art style that combines the difficult platforming of Super Meat Boy with the gel-like mechanics of Portal 2. Splasher's story is pretty simple, and it's really only there to give a bit of purpose to the platforming. You play as a purple-haired boy, aka Kaz from Neo Yokio. He's working in a science facility known as Ink Corp that experiments with different types of inks that have different types of properties, like being able to make you climb up walls or bounce off the roof. The head of the facility is a greedy doctor only referred to as Le Docteur. This evil doctor is using the friendly workers of Ink Corp as guinea pigs for his experiments. When our hero realizes this, he uses the splatter cannon to attack the facility and rescue all the captured employees and stop Le Docteur's evil plan. Like I said, it's a pretty bare-bones story with the occasional cutscene here and there before a level, but ultimately it's a game all about gameplay. Upon first playing Splasher, the first comparison that comes to mind for the gameplay is Super Meat Boy. The platforming, fluid motion, and speed of the gameplay is very reminiscent of it. Because of all this, I immediately felt like this was a platformer that catered to speedrunners, and it turns out that that's actually correct, as the game was created with the collaboration of some developers that worked on Rayman Origins and Legends, along with some well-known speedrunners. The game follows a layout similar to Kirby's Adventure, where you have this hub world of sorts that in itself is basically a level. You look around this hub world looking for rooms that lead you to the next level. We'll come back to this in a bit. When you enter a level, you'll have two goals: to complete the level and save the employees in the level. Levels will throw you down a linear progression system that has you move from left to right, down to up, right to left, and back again. They're usually never a straight line, but they do follow a linear system to where you'll never get lost. As you run through a level, you'll jump from platform to platform, lure enemies into acid pits, dodge spinning saw blades, and so much more. A lot of the platforming revolves around the splatter cannon on your back. You start off with just water, but as you progress through the game, you'll begin to unlock inks for the cannon that have completely different properties and in return, completely change the mechanics of the levels you're playing. For example, a lot of the earlier sections of the game revolve around the water mechanic that cleans up the spilled ink throughout the level. The red ink slows you down but helps you stick onto walls to climb up seemingly impossible angles. The yellow ink acts as a bounce pad that can ricochet you across a room between a narrow hallway. The water is used to clean up these inks to make a clear path for you to walk through. In addition, it can be used to destroy enemy robots or get the attention of larger enemies that aren't affected by the water. Now I said that the other half of the goal for these levels is to save the employees. The employees actually play a big part in the progression of the game. There's a total of 7 employees in each level, each hidden in a different nook and cranny of the level that reward the player for performing risky platforming jumps. When you collect all 7 of the employees for each level, they spell out the phrase splash, and they ultimately tally up to a total account of saved employees that open up gates to further levels in the game. Of those 7 hidden employees for each level, the last one is always locked behind a door that can only be opened by collecting 700 points of a yellow liquid. This currency is earned by cleaning up glowing smudges in the level or by destroying enemies. Ultimately, you'll be playing through each level to of course get through the entire level, but also to save the trapped employees, which in return will help you progress to further blocked off levels. It's a great combination for a platformer that has worked for years now, and it works here too. Luckily, like other great challenging platformers of the past, the addition of easy to use and accurate controls means that the challenge of the gameplay doesn't come from unfair mechanics, but rather clever level design. Some will be happy to hear that there are checkpoints in each of these levels, and they're fairly placed between the challenging sections of each level. On the opposite side, if you want more of a challenge, you can activate a time attack mode from the hub menu that gives you a time score focused mode for each of the levels. Splasher has a nice hand-drawn looking animation style to it that's reminiscent of something like Castle Crashers. It's very fluid looking, no pun intended, and works well with the fast-paced nature of the gameplay. Now while it may not be the most realistic looking game out there, I love the use of colors and backgrounds in this game. Each level is filled with vibrant colors that immediately click with the player's head to match them with the according game mechanic. For example, when you're speeding through a level, you know the red color ink helps you stick to walls, while the yellow ink color will help you bounce. In your head, you know to mentally prepare yourself for that mechanic when you see the matching color. The backgrounds, like I mentioned before, are pretty fantastic too. I appreciate that they aren't just patterns but actual according backgrounds that elaborate as you progress through the level. They aren't static either, you can actually see robots being built in the background along with the other moving parts of the factory, still in progress through each of the levels. I played the game on PC and Switch, and I did notice that while it looks like the Switch version is running at 1080p 60 just like the PC version, there are some moments of slowdown when there are a lot of particles and enemies on screen. It's not a big problem though, because these usually happen in stationary parts where you're trying to defeat a bunch of enemies at the same time, but it's definitely noticeable when it does happen. It would be a much bigger problem if it happened during the platforming speed sections of the game. If you're playing this in handheld mode, the game scales down pretty well, and of course the resolution is lower, but it still looks pretty good on the Switch's display. Splasher's soundtrack is made by some of the same team that worked on games like Rayman Origins and Valiant Hearts. It's punchy and funky while completely fitting the very sci-fi nature of this game. It feels like music you'd probably hear in a commercial for Portal as you explore an empty science facility, and to some extent you pretty much are doing that in this game. Some tracks stand out more than others, especially when you take a long time in a level and they begin to loop, but for the most part they're pretty good. Splasher is a very fun yet challenging platformer that I think would fit nicely into any platformer fan's library. The idea of gels that have different properties isn't really a new thing for platformers, but it's used pretty well in this game's gameplay. If you're a fan of games like Super Meat Boy, I think you'd really get a kick out of this game, as it's pretty much tailor-made for those fans of that genre, as well as speedrunners. With that said, if you are thinking of getting this on the Switch, keep in mind there is that slowdown kink on heavier sections that I mentioned earlier, though if the Switch is literally your only device, I don't think it's a big enough issue to sway you away from getting the game. That does it for my review of Splasher for the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and PC. If you have any questions about the game that I may have missed, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to answer them for you if I can. As always, if you like this type of content, then consider dropping a like and subscribing for more reviews just like this. If there are any games in the future you'd like to see reviewed, let me know in the comments down below, and thank you all very much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.